The Small Business Administration is now approving and distributing grants to restaurants and other food businesses from nearly $29 billion set aside in the March pandemic relief package. But as capacity limits are phased out and more customers venture in, restaurants are facing another major obstacle: staffing. While hiring has risen steadily over the past several months, it's still lagging behind pre-pandemic levels, and business owners across the country say they just can't seem to find enough workers to meet the demand.
We're putting out the ad and we're getting 3 or 4 responses, and then we call them to come in for an interview and they don't even show up for interviews.
How hard is it to find people to work?
It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. Nobody wants to come back to work.
Local restaurateurs are having trouble finding staff these days too, including Will Gilson. He's of Puritan Company, the Lexington, I was there the other night, Cafe Beatrice and Geppetto, all in Cambridge, and Bessie King, general manager of Villa México Café in Boston, which she owns with her mother. Bessie and Will, it's good to see you both. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Jim.
Briefly, Bessie, the Mass Restaurant Association said a quarter of the restaurants in the state folded for good in the last 14 months. Why were you able to survive, do you think?
Honestly, because we hustled. Any restaurant that's alive right now is just based on hustle. Whether we created takeout specials or we sold our food as packages, or for us, we shipped our salsa nationwide, getting to almost every state and offering, even better prices than usual. It was just a matter of hustling and sincerely asking for donations. We made it very clear to customers that if they wanted us around, we needed their funds.
By the way, best salsa I've also ever had. That may have helped as well. Will, you didn't just survive, you expanded in the middle of a pandemic. Explain the thinking.
I mean, we didn't really have an option. I mean, the biggest thing was we had already started it. We were supposed to open in June of 2020, and the construction moratorium pushed us back to October. And we really just kind of at that point, we were all in. We had a really good relationship and partnership with our developers and landlord. And I think that once we were already in, it was, I'm not going to lie, honestly, the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life was the past year, but especially the past 6 months of opening, multiple concepts, a huge square footage place. It was awful. I mean, we sleepless nights, just feeling like you were pushing a rock to the top of a hill and watching it roll, not just down, but over you over and over and over again every single day. And I think that the only thing that kept me going was the staff that we did have, the people who believed in what we were trying to do, and that I knew I had to wake up every day and push that boulder off my chest and make sure that I had a job for them to come back to.
Bessie, is staffing the biggest problem you're facing coming out of the other side of this thing?
Honestly, yes, and I feel Will completely, because the reason why we didn't close, the reason why we chose to stay open, and we still choose to stay open, is for our people. We knew that they needed the money and that they were let go of their nighttime jobs immediately. And we're located in the middle of the financial district, so people not returning to work in the offices has made it twice as hard for us to survive. And now it's almost like a double-edged sword. We stayed open for them, but unfortunately they haven't returned to work, and we can't even offer more hours or expand our services to customers because we're short-staffed. We just had Cinco de Mayo, and to be honest, it's one of our most profitable days of the entire year. And I had 3 people and me working. It was awful. I love our customers. We have the most support of the city. It's incredible how much they have helped us for 20 years in business, but it was one of the hardest days in our entire history because we were short-staffed and we were unable to serve our customers as they deserve.
Will, you're in Boston Magazine talking about something that I hadn't thought much about, which is sort of the work-life balance issue that many people who work for you discovered, maybe for the first time ever, when sort of shut in at home. Flesh that out. How's that? I mean, good news for them, arguably bad news for you. How's that play out?
Well, let's make one thing clear. All of this was here before COVID. You know, this was something that we were wrestling with as restaurants and businesses in the city of Cambridge and Boston before all of this. Nationwide, everybody was struggling to stay staffed up. This just made it worse. But I also think it was the first time that people had the ability to stop and take a look at what life would be like if they didn't have to be stuck working a job just to make ends meet. About maybe 3 weeks ago, when we were really bashing our heads against the wall trying to figure out how to solve the staffing issue, I just started putting up these messages on social media being like, come by and grab a cup of coffee on me and tell me why you might not want to come back to work right now. Is it your safety? Is it money? Like, what is it? And the number one thing that I heard from people was work-life balance. And also someone said, listen, I have a 3-year-old and that kid is basically, I'm able to put them through subsidized daycare right now because my pay dropped. That is a real struggle that we have to wrestle with in this country, that it's not about whether or not we're not paying enough. I mean, I'm paying 25% more now, still in the middle of a pandemic, than I was before it.
Will, I've been going to Puritan Company forever. Is it, and it's a pretty creative place, I should say, is it harder to be creative in your work? And I'm going to ask you this, Bessie, in a minute too, when you're so focused on existing, you know what I mean?
I think, going back to what we said before, it's about the team. It's about every single person who is involved in it. I watched the team of people working for me figure out ways to create personalized messages to send home with people's tasting menus that they were getting at home over the past year. That wasn't an idea that I gave them. That was everybody on the team being like, let's figure out a way to do what we do in a different way, because we have to adapt, we have to change, and we need to figure out a way to be riddled with hospitality any way we can for the folks who aren't even able to come out here. And I tell you what, takeout business isn't going anywhere. If anybody who thinks they're going to stop doing takeout and just do dine in, you're in for a wild surprise, because that still represents about 30% of our business.
Did you just say riddled with hospitality? Is that the phrase? Yeah. I love that. Yes. I love that phrase. So how about you and your mother? Has it been harder to be creative and branch out in new directions when you're worried about, can you open the door the next day?
It has been a test of loyalty to the business in a way. We have also been having to deal with very sad personal family matters with the death of a close loved one and with the caretaking of her. Thank you. And so it just puts it more, like Will was saying, work-life balance, right? What are we doing this for? And it really tests your commitment to your restaurant. And if it weren't for the team, if it weren't for the customers, we really would not still be going. But I think, and I just want to add, not just that employees are getting their paychecks. I have employees that don't get any benefits, but the issue of services, right? The caretaking aspect is huge. And right. I have mothers that can't come back to work because there's no services for them, that as their status may or may not allow them to get those paychecks from unemployment benefits, and it doesn't allow them to get any services of childcare. So it's a really tough situation. It's not just the big restaurants. All the little ones are feeling it too.
You only have 15 seconds for each of you, but starting with you, Bessie, do you envision a time in the future when you return to the everyday mundane problems as you encountered as opposed to existential ones? I mean, do you see that place? Quickly, if you can.
Hope so, yes. I think that realistically, as awful as it sounds, it's going to take at least another year, if not 2 years, for us to get to that sweet spot. And in the meantime, we really need our governments to step up and create resources for us to continue surviving.
How about you, Will?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to the part of my day where the hardest thing I have to deal with is somebody not liking their entree and not figuring out how to keep everybody safe. So I look forward to that, and hopefully that's sooner than later. But I think Bessie's right. We got a long road ahead.
Well, I hope you both stay riddled with hospitality regardless of what happens. Will Gilson, Bessie King, it's great to see you both. Bessie, say hi to your mom. Good to see you guys. Bye.
Thanks, Jim. Bye, Bessie.
Thank you.